Perez, Bottas, or Barichello? Who's the top number 2? Sergio Perez has recently signed a new contract. Why? To old school fans or purists, it's incomprehensible. We were used to Senna versus Prost, Häkkinen versus Coulthard, or Mansell versus Piquet, 2 warriors dueling for supremacy in equal machinery, as Nico Rosberg would have said. But teammates dueling inevitably leads to teammates costing the team points. And for ages, we've had the likes of Rubens Barrichello, Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez, the number 2 driver that doesn't always realize he's the number 2. There's nothing wrong with being the number 2 guy. I think it takes a special kind of mental strength to be able to admit you are not quite up to your teammates' level and commit to doing what's best for the team. Something Danny Ricciardo, for instance, could not do when confronted with a rising Max Verstappen. And honestly, looking back, his career pretty much tanked after leaving Red Bull. The number 2 is a special position. Like a goalkeeper almost, the man tasked with helping the main peanut look good, doomed to get none of the glory for himself. Rubens certainly was a brilliant wingman to Schumacher, and after Rosberg and Hamilton battled so fiercely, Bottas was always the number 2 to Lewis' main peanutum, and Perez, whether he likes it or not, is the backup fella to the Prince of Orange. But the question now is, who did it best? So I'm going to take a look at this as it happened. So we're starting with Rubens. Rubens Barrichello, number 2, not just to Schumi, but to Button as well? Get one thing straight. Rubens may have been the man behind Schumacher, yes, but he was no mug. The Brazilian was a magnificent driver. He had a career of 322 starts in Formula 1, winning 11 and scoring 68 podiums. That's more wins than someone like Jody Scheckter, who was Ferrari's last world champion before the maker of shoes came around. As teammates, these two were seemingly unbeatable. Schumi won 5 World Drivers' Championships and Ferrari won 5 Constructors' titles in their time together. Schumacher won 72 races and Rubens won 9. Barrichello had no doubt what his role was and fulfilled it perfectly. Quoting the man on his time as Schumacher's teammate, "If you put myself against Michael, I think it was a 70-30 split. Let's put it this way, he was better than me. He was more complete and Michael didn't have bad days. Whenever he had a bad day or he was vulnerable, the team around him prepared him to be back up. They knew how to affect him positively. But if it was run straight, just the same strategy for everyone, I might have won at least one championship, at least one. It doesn't make a difference now, it's part of the past. I didn't and I'm happy with that because I tried." End quote. So he admits he was the number 2 and he admits the team saw it that way and he admits that he had to fulfill that role and he did it brilliantly. It's no coincidence, in my opinion in any case, that Schumacher joined Ferrari in 1996 but only won his first title in 2000 with the Scuderia, the year Rubens joined them. Eddie Irvine was a fine driver. He wasn't so uniquely equipped to the number 2 position and fancied himself Schumi's equal. He was wrong, but you can't blame the guy for trying. Formula 1 and driving, after all, is very much a confidence sport. When Irvine left to go and make Ford and Jaguar great again, spoiler alert, he didn't, it was up to Barrichello to push and protect Michael to greatness. Yeah, the Ferrari was a beast, but McLaren were the 2-time defending World Drivers' Champions. Williams were recovering and Jordan was more than capable of surprising. Yet it was the Brazilian that pushed and protected Schumacher to the title, and he pretty much always obeyed team orders to let the German flourish. In 2002, Barrichello finished second in the title race behind Schumi and gifted his teammate the win in Austria, letting him pass for the good of the team. Michael even handed him the winner's trophy on the podium afterwards. Now, after leaving Ferrari for the 2006 season, Rubens would again push a teammate to the title in 2009, even though he wasn't the number 2 officially at Brawn. Jenson Button winning the title and himself and Barrichello finishing 3rd in the championship. As a support driver, Barrichello achieved 5 Constructors' titles with Ferrari and 1 with Brawn, while his teammates won 6 World Drivers' titles. Valtteri Bottas, possibly the quickest number 2. Younger fans only know the weirdo who shows his ass to the odd photographer, But there was a time not that long ago, dear Drive to Survivor, that Bottas was talked about as a potential World Drivers' Champion. Currently driving the rather rubbish Sauber kick green thingy, Bottas can grow a remarkable mustache and is a winner of 10 Grand Prix and has achieved 67 podiums, the bulk of which he did at Mercedes, where he was without much doubt the number 2 to Lewis Hamilton in a bid by Toto Wolff to stabilize the team after the fierce Lewis-Rosberg battles, and it worked ridiculously well. When Toto poached Bottas from the team Frank built and Claire pretty much ruined, we knew he was solid, but we didn't know how he would support Lewis. It was obvious to all but the blindest Mercedes fan that Bottas would be allowed to win the odd race, but that Toto had learned his lesson the hard way and he wouldn't allow a Rosberg-Lewis scenario to repeat itself. Yeah, the fans wanted an all-out battle between the vastly superior two Mercedes cars, but that was exactly what had cost McLaren the title in 2007. Hamilton and Alonso battled each other so well as teammates that they effectively took enough points off each other to give Kimi the title for Ferrari. It was pretty obvious Bottas was the number 2 to Lewis. So how did he do? 3rd, 5th, 2nd, and 3rd in the World Drivers' Championships in his 5 years as Hamilton's buddy, and they won the Constructors every season. Hamilton won 4 drivers' titles in that time. Hamilton, Bottas and Verstappen became the sequence that drove many fans away from watching Formula 1. Ham, Bot, Ver, in any order, made up the top 3 of 49% of all laps in the 2020 season. The Mercedes was all-conquering and no amount of spinning or moaning could get Seb Vettel close to them. Only Verstappen managed to challenge at times. Bottas, however, never came close to challenging Lewis for a title. He did, however, do a sterling job of keeping the rest behind and helping the team to titles, which, thinking about it, was exactly what Team Toto wanted from the man. He put in the odd terrific drive, became the king of pre-race practice sessions, but unfortunately they don't award championship points for those. As a number 2, his time at Mercedes was a success, as the 5 Constructors titles prove, and in my opinion Bottas, as a dedicated number 2 driver, finishes just below the Rubens Barrichello second most precious metal? Silver. So Bottas finishes just below the Barrichello silver standard and takes the silver spoon, if you wish, which brings us to Sergio Perez, a seemingly very likable man who has a bit of an exaggerated ambition in relation to his ability, as a failed stint as Hamilton's replacement at McLaren showed us a long time ago. Perez, doomed to follow Max until he retires? Perez doesn't seem to think of himself as Max's number 2. Apart from himself and possibly his dad, very few people share this opinion. I used to believe that Perez needed to be given the go-ahead by the Spice Boy to race Max, and that he was up to the challenge. While chomping down on some humble pie now, I have to admit that the 2023 and what we've seen from the 2024 season has proven me ridiculously wrong. Perez is the winner of 6 Grand Prix and has 39 podiums, a few hours before the 2024 Canadian GP as I write this, and after the Canadian GP he still has 6 wins and 39 podiums. He has been at Red Bull since 2021 and he replaced Alex Albon in the seemingly poisoned seat next to Max. Perez has been the first driver to hang on to that seat on a permanent basis, seeing off challenges from Gasly and Ricciardo, and even keeping youngsters like Liam Lawson at bay, despite failing rather dismally in qualifying session after qualifying session, and coming nowhere near Verstappen's pace. He hasn't been anywhere near as effective as Rubens or Bottas in allowing his Alpha teammate to pull away in races, because he tends to qualify poorly, thereby leaving Max to having to fend for himself. 4th, 3rd and 2nd is where he finished in his completed seasons as a Red Bull driver in the title race, and his team has won the Constructors in 2022 and 2023. Here's the thing though, they won it despite Perez underperforming. Perez has meant very little to Red Bull, and they seem to like it that way. When allowed and supported, he has done decently and even won races, but Red Bull has become almost a one-car team, with what Perez brings in almost being a bonus. He has whatever support is left from the team after Max is happy, and he's the obvious number 2 driver, no matter what Horner or his Austrian nemesis, Kobos or whatever Marco is says. As a title challenger, Perez has not been a factor, and as a number 2 to Verstappen, he has been incredibly ineffective. Why do they keep him on and not give Lawson or Tsunoda, who has been whooping Ricciardo like he was a Texas slave over from the past, a go? I can't think why. Very few top drivers would think about joining Red Bull, because the team is completely built around Max. So that rules out Russell, Lando or Leclerc even thinking about joining them. The next tier of drivers have mostly already been signed by Red Bull. Sainz, Gasly, Albon, Ricciardo and Tsunoda are or were Red Bull contracted drivers already. Alonso and Lewis don't fit the bill and wouldn't do well there. They would not do well as Max's teammates. They would battle him ridiculously. And Lando, Leclerc and Russell and Piastri simply wouldn't agree to play second fiddle, which leaves us with the likes of Hulk, K-Mag, Dad's Cash, etc. So Perez stays, kind of by default, and not because of the great job he's doing. Because he really isn't. But yeah, so now we've had a look at the 3 contenders, and in my opinion Barichello wins the best number 2 driver, comfortably, with poor Perez getting the wooden spoon. Being a number 2 driver at a big team means putting the team first and staying motivated despite suffering personal disappointment. Sure, Rubens wasn't perfect and he left Ferrari because he got fed up with how they treated him, but for the professional job the man did in pushing Michael Schumacher to levels never before seen in the sport and remaining an incredibly popular and likable character while doing so, the legend called Rubens gets my vote as the best and most effective number 2 driver in the sport so far. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. Thank you so much for sticking it out and watching to the end. If you think someone else deserves to be on this list, maybe the likes of Gerhard Berger to send out McLaren or some other driver that did a great job as a number 2, please give your opinion in the comments. Thank you, God bless, and goodbye.